Welcome back. I'm Streaky, I'm a mastering engineer from London, and today I'm going to show you what levels you should be mastering your music to in 2021. You will have heard a lot of people saying about minus 14 LUFS. I get a lot of questions about it, so I thought I'd address that in this video. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what level you should master to and exactly why that is the case. I'll show you some examples at the end of the video so you can totally hear for yourself the difference that I'm going to talk about. Now, when you're mastering music, the final thing you have in your chain all of the time is a limiter. Now, a limiter is essentially a compressor, and what the limiter's there for is a brick wall limiter. We've used them forever, and you get the track to hit the brick wall limiter so it doesn't go over. If it goes over and into the reds, that means you're going to get distortion, and it might sound crushed and might sound weird on different systems. So what we do to protect ourselves is put a brick wall limiter at the end. But before we get into all of that, please make sure you like this video. It helps the algorithm, it helps me, it will do me a great favor, and other people like you will then get to see videos like this from me. So please hit the like button now, and if you aren't new here, please subscribe. Okay, when I was cutting vinyl, people always want their vinyl louder than someone else's vinyl. Howie Weinberg in America, who was a big cutting engineer, would be known for making loud vinyl, so everyone went to Howie. Also, the fact is that even when you had stuff going to radio rather than going to Spotify that you would now, radio, you would want your track louder than somebody else's so that basically you stood out to someone else. This is exactly why Spotify bring things down to minus 14 LUFS, and all the other channels do too. It's exactly the same as they used to do in radio. In radio, they used to have a brick wall limiter, and all the tracks would either be brought up to level or brought down to level by this brick wall limiter. So everyone's tracks, when they're on radio, you didn't have to keep turning it up and down all the time. So that's the kind of history of how we got to this point in time with loudness. But the fact of this video is that I'm going to tell you what you should be doing when you're finishing your tracks in 2021. Now, we used to master stuff to around minus 14 LUFS, which is what you always hear. We used limiters like this one. This is a Junger D01 for all you techie nerds out there. These have a great upward expander on, like a compressor expander on them, so you can still use them. But we used to use these for the limiter, and we'd add, say, 1 dB. And that was just basically just to trim the tops off to make sure we weren't going to distort. Now, when you're mastering for streaming services, I've just done loads of tests on this, and I'm going to play those tests to you at the end of this video so that you can hear the difference of what I'm saying of how things sound when you master in a certain way. So if you know something is only going to a streaming service and it's not going anywhere else, it's only uploading, so you're in charge of uploading it to a streaming service, you know that that streaming service is minus 14 LUFS like Spotify. Basically, you want to be mastering to minus 14 LUFS. The reason why I tell you that is because as soon as you start pushing into the limiter to get it to minus 8 LUFS, which is what most tracks are mastered to, it's not going to sound as good. So at the end of this video, I'm going to show you examples where I've level matched two tracks. It's the same track, one's mastered to minus 14 LUFS and the other one's mastered to minus 8 LUFS. And you'll hear the difference because they're both playing at the same level, which is exactly what Spotify do. They just bring the level down so they balance them up to minus 14 LUFS. You'll hear the difference. You'll hear that the one that hasn't got the limiter on is more open, it's nicer sounding, and that's the sound that I always like mastering to. My only problem is when I do that is that if it's going out into the world that's not just streaming services, so if it's going to CD, for example, or if it's going to land on the desk of an A&R man, or it's going to land on the desk of somebody else in the world that doesn't understand about levels and what sounds good and what sounds bad, Just come and help yourself, son. Sorry, I've got the dog with me today. So basically, if it's going to land on the desk of anyone, and a lot of clients will listen to it and say, well, it's not as loud as that other track. And that's always the problem we're going to have when you're making a record. So you have to do a version that's going out to the whole world at minus 8 LUFS at the moment, because that is just the basic facts of the matter, because it's just not going to be loud enough for everybody. It's not going to sound the same. This is why you need to know how to master well, because I can get a track to be minus 8 LUFS and still sound as good as the -14 LUFS. Now, yes, it's going to be more compressed, there's no getting around that, but the way that you EQ something, the way you use dynamics and the way you gain stage things before you get to -8 LUFS is how you get it to sound good. This channel tells you loads of tips and tricks on how to do that. But the fact of the matter is, -14 LUFS does sound better than -8 because you still EQ it in the same way, you still use the dynamics in the same way. The only difference there is that you're going to be hitting a limiter and then pulling up a load of gain on a limiter to get it sounding loud. If you can get away from doing that, brilliant, but most of the time you can't. If you're in charge of the project, you should master it to -14 LUFS. But the problem is, it's not going to sound as loud. If somebody has their normalize off on, if it gets played on another system, it's not going to sound as loud as everyone else's. If it goes out to a club and all those club tracks are played at -8 LUFS, then it's not going to be as loud as those tracks. So that's why I say you need to just do a version at -8 LUFS as your kind of one standard version. Make sure it sounds as good as you possibly can get it. Whole point of mastering. Unless you're just doing a streaming version. So when my mastering services, I always offer a streaming version, and they need to kind of say, okay, it's for Apple or it's for Spotify, and it's just going, and that's the streaming version, and then this version is the main version that goes out there to the rest of the world for all the other things like CDs and vinyl and whatever. So yeah, that is my take on it. That is how it works. You're going to hear now the difference between the two so that you can see exactly the tests that I run so that I can see what does sound best and what doesn't sound best. And you'll understand. If you listen to the -4, the one that's mastered to -14 LUFS, and I think you'll agree with me, it's a bit more open. It's got nicer sound, it's just not as crushed sounding. But, you know, that is just the way the ball rolls, really. So I hope that's helped you out. If you've got any questions below, which I'm sure you have on this subject, then please hit me up in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe. And after you've heard these two, there is a video on me mastering in Ozone. So check that out. I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.